I'm Sue McMahon, the Director of Partner Strategy for Retail and Consumer Goods for Microsoft. And joining me today to talk about how we're going to transform contact center experiences with AI is J.K. Rajaretnam from Wipro.
About Wipro, we are a global system integration partner, and we have presence when we work with Microsoft globally on multiple engagements with multiple clients. And at Wipro, I'm a consulting partner, and I deal with retail, consumer goods, and life sciences. I also lead the Center of Excellence for Customer Data Platforms.
And thank you for being here today to talk to us about transforming contact center. It's such an area, or has historically been such an area of pain for retailers and for their customers. So tell me about trends that you're seeing around contact center and why you think now is the right time to reinvent.
Definitely. So let me start with a little bit of a retail challenge, so that would set the context for the whole thing. So if you look at the retail data ecosystem very closely, it's one of the most complex. Given that I've worked with almost every industry vertical, I can give you that for sure. Now, people in this crowd might tell you that banking is much more complex, for example, and I can tell you that when you look at banking, it's still more structured. Though there may be thousands of applications, there is a structure in that madness. But on the retail side, if I take an example of, let's say, feedbacks, you will have Medallia, Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey. You will have, there's this person collecting feedback in store on a paper, Microsoft Forms on a tablet, and we have to blend all these and more. If you take e-commerce, you have Vtex, Shopify, Magento, and the list is endless. Despite the fact you're talking about one brand, one single organization, right? So that is where the retail ecosystem becomes more challenging, and we need a strong backend to support all these. And the trend is evolving from there.
Couldn't agree with you more. Tell us more about how you're enabling through the Retail Intelligence Suite, also the use of generative AI to solve some of those problems further upstream and remove the age-old painfulness that comes with chatbots in customer care situations.
Before I get into those specific features or the use cases, let's see what is enabling them first, and then talk about those specifics, so there is a little bit of a connect. So number one, we have decided to use a industry data model, retail specific data model that is, number one, reusable, and two, it is customizable. So as you onboard the data, new personas can be brought in, and it becomes like a reusable engine. You develop for one, and then you keep enhancing it or customizing for others. So that's one of the three things. Second is pre-built AI ML algorithms that we have been using as point solutions. Now we can bring them in because now we're using an industry standard model. That's the biggest advantage. And we have also extended that to bring in those deep learning models, and each of those models are persona based. And we look at the personas, actionable intelligence, what are they looking for, and then build it based on that. And the third is your GenAI. Now the GenAI piece is where now we are entering an area where somebody who is not good at, let's say, technology, you want them to talk in the natural language and then bring that conversational analytics or conversational intelligent communication with the system out. These are the three fundamental things we kept as a backbone to enable contact center specific use cases like, let's say, agent assistant issue resolution or agent availability, or it could be, say, a transcript summarizer. So a number of things have been developed based on this.
Before the advent of large language models, data algorithms, models could only really kind of absorb structured data in a very programmatic way. That was their sweet spot. But now with GenAI, we can also incorporate unstructured data into the mix, and that is the contact center data. So it's going to be amazing the richness that we'll be able to enable in the customer profiles as a result of that.
I'll give you a practical use case that's it, right? So a person, let's say yourself, you start initiating an email chat with somebody, start explaining a problem, it goes into the system. Then you have a chat interface where you're chatting with the agent again, you explain the same problem all over, and then you have a call the next day and you have to explain the same problem again. How painful would that be? What's your experience like?
It is very painful, and that's what the current experience is like.
That is where the GenAI is coming in with the transcript summarizer. where now the person knows that you have interacted with me thrice, and this is the problems you've stated, and this is the solution that was proposed, and I'm not going to repeat the solution back to you. And that makes a lot of difference when it comes to delivering that experience which retailers want to give their customers.
Amperity is a customer data platform that works with hundreds of the world's leading brands to create a unified data foundation to drive customer growth. And Microsoft is one of our key partners, a cloud partner that enables our brands partner with Amperity to drive customer experiences at scale. And we have some incredible brand names that we share, including Tumi, Michaels, and Tapestry. And I'm super excited to be here today to chat a bit about AI.
As everybody knows, AI is the hot topic right now. Can you talk about practical ways that you've seen retailers drive customer growth with AI?
Yep, absolutely. So AI is absolutely having a moment. I think we hear about it everywhere in any publication, on any podcast, and it's worthy of a lot of the hype because what's really exciting for retailers is AI is actually going to be able to close a personalization gap between your in-store experiences and online experiences and do so at scale. So think about going into a department store and having a sales associate sort of tend to what you need. AI is going to be able to translate that to all of the online experiences, which is super exciting. But of course, retailers are asking, how can I take advantage of this now? What do I do? So I think about AI and GenAI specifically in terms of sort of outward facing and inward facing AI. So outward facing is what consumers sort of interact with. So AI that actually creates ads super quickly, images really quickly, personalizes content at scale, creates a really, really personal customer service experience online if you see those chat experiences that know who you are. And so that is sort of the outward facing AI. And inward facing is what actually brand teams and retail teams are going to be able to take advantage of to do this really effectively and efficiently and take advantage of their customer data at scale. So think about a non-technical user actually being able to ask natural language questions of their data to get some answers. GenAI is going to power all of that, and it's really going to unlock a lot of opportunities for brands to get to know their customers better, to interact with the data that they have, and actually power these really incredible experiences. The kicker, though, is all of this relies heavily on having really, really good quality data. And if you don't have that, all the things I just mentioned are just not going to work.
You mentioned generative AI. I'd love to know how Amperity is continuing to invest in generative AI in their solutions.
Yeah, so I mentioned we're using AI for identity resolution, which is great. We're also using AI to power our predictive models, which make the models super precise, really exact, because we're using AI to power them. We have a predictive model for churn propensity, so someone who's likely to churn, product affinity, as well as high value customers. So predict the value of a customer going forward. We've actually had those models in our platform for quite some time, but what I'm most excited about is we recently incorporated generative AI into our platform. We recently announced this actually, but one of the ways we're doing it is called our AI assistant, which actually helps more technical users build on our platform more easily. So create SQL queries more quickly, troubleshoot SQL queries, ask syntax questions so that they can actually understand the SQL better, which has been really awesome to see our customers adopt very quickly. And then another tool we're calling AmpGPT, which enables any user at a brand, so technical or non-technical, to ask natural language questions of the customer data, sort of what I mentioned earlier, but to visualize, to provide a result so that they can really take advantage of the data in this new and exciting way and drive these incredible experiences for their customers. We're excited to continue to build, to continue to talk about it, and we love having conversations with our customers about the possibilities of generative AI with good data. Yeah.
And just one more closing question.
Yeah.
You know, you're working with your customers, I'm working with our customers, and
Yeah.
everybody is on those first stages of their generative AI journeys.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a company that's starting that journey today?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's so much you can do. It can be overwhelming. And so aside from our number one, which is data quality, get your data in place, right? Have good data, unify your customer data, know who your customers are. The second is actually to start small, right? Don't adopt every potential GenAI tool or use any GenAI use case. Think about where you can practically apply it and start small. So you're not overwhelming your brand teams. You're not just trying to do too much at once. We really recommend that. And then the third really is you're going to need a human in the loop, right? GenAI is not a human replacement. It's not, okay, it's going to run perfectly without a human. There's still a lot that we have to learn about generative AI and a lot that that's going to have to be trusted with using it. And so having a human there for quality assurance, for oversight, actually learning about the models and the data that it's being fed to the generative AI tools is really important.
Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Accenture?
Hi, thanks, Sue. Hi, my name's Emily Fannin, and I'm part of the commerce practice within Accenture Song. We are the digital agency arm of Accenture, and we're structured across commerce, marketing, and services, really focused on the customer experience layer across industries for our clients.
Well, who more perfect to be with us here today than to talk about GenAI and how it's going to affect the consumer experience? So why don't we dig right in?
So we're very excited about GenAI at Accenture. One of the things that we're really looking forward to seeing is how the GenAI tools kit will actually transform how customers are interacting with brands and retailers. And I think if you can let your imagination run wild in the future and think about what we might see, I think there's a real opportunity where we'll start to have assistance essentially in our shopping journey that'll help us discover and find products, services that we're looking for in a more natural way than we do today. Today, it's a race based around product and keyword identification. And moving forward, we're going to be able to see more semantic or natural language interaction that will let us discover. And I think it will really change the top of the funnel. So those early discovery and exploration points in the journey. And then also when you are interacting with a brand or a retailer, whether it's on their website or a digital channel or even in their stores.
Knowing everything you need to do to paint a room, all the tools you need, and then, being able to take my Pinterest board of inspiration and share it with the AI and say, bring me back the right colors, is pretty remarkable.
I think that the other place that we'll see this change is that kind of like off-property inspiration, whether it's a search engine or a social media platform. At Pinterest, I think, is one of the exciting examples when we think today about how there's a collection of content that consumers are putting together. And in the future, as models become multimodal and can consume, imagery and video, that those consumers that have created those types of inspiration boards will be able to then be connected with the products that they're seeing, maybe even service offerings to support those solutions. If you think about you have an inspiration board for your backyard renovation and you want to know how to lay the patio, maybe there's how-to content that you get connected to. That type of more intuitive, partnering, conversational intelligence, it could really expand your imagination as a consumer of how you would want to interact with one of these LLMs. And that's actually one of the kind of exciting things, is that then you think about the breadth that you'll be able to get exposed to as the consumer, but then also kind of like a reality check as well, because then that really means that the LLMs are becoming the influencers. It's the new layer of influence, connecting customers with products and services.
Yes, you said that to me and I thought, wow, that is a really foundational concept. That was great. Because we know everybody needs a place to get started, we've built some templates into our own Microsoft Cloud for Retail. And one of them is a template, Copilot for personalized shopping. So it's a place for the customer, if they have the data science resources, or a partner like Accenture, to begin and extend to the use case that the end customer wants to build.
We talked a little bit about what are some of the risks? And certainly data access is a risk. So for a retailer to be able to use a solution like Microsoft's to be able to build out then a service that's really bespoke for their customer. So at Bicorama, they actually brought in their experts from the store floors, the advisors on how to do the different types of painting that you might have, different techniques. And they actually used that expertise that they have in-house to build out the LLM using their insights and their language and their approaches to advisory. So it was very customized for their unique use case and accelerated greatly by having Microsoft as a partner.
Today's topic is research and development and how to apply generative AI in this domain. And I really didn't understand how important it is for many of our retail and consumer goods companies. Almost 2% to 8% of their revenues invested in R&D. So maybe you can share with us from your perspective where some of the hurdles are in terms of speeding up the cycle or getting from idea to market faster.
Excellent question. Just to add a little bit about the spend. I'm going to share a couple of absolute numbers so that you have an idea. Like Pepsi spent $700 million on R&D in 2022. L'Oreal, almost $1.4 billion. So this is a very important function for consumer goods companies that involves a lot of people. It's a very complicated process. There are a lot of teams involved. When you think about R&D process, you think about this enterprise capability to produce new innovation, be it a new flavor, new product, new packaging, something completely new that didn't exist on the market before. It has 3 stages. First one is what we call the front-end innovation. This is what happens before R&D teams start to kind of ideate on something. That part of the life cycle requires understanding of consumer insights, studying their behaviors, needs, and trying to figure out what is that the consumer will need tomorrow in this market or globally, right? So then there's second stage, which includes actually development of a product. It includes a lot of steps in between, again, from ideation, concepting, like P&L modeling, testing, claims identification. It's a very lengthy process. It can take anywhere between 3 months to like even 3 years. On average, companies spend about 18 months working on a new product. And then the third phase is actually market launch. And I've seen a lot of innovations failing at the very end, at the market launch. Why? You didn't do enough testing, or you did too much testing, you launched too late, or you launched in the wrong market, or the consumer doesn't need it anymore, or regulation changed and you can't actually ship this product. Bottom line, a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. That's why it's so expensive to do. But the good thing is that with the rise of generative AI and wider adoption of more classic machine learning approaches, some of these problems will be less impactful as we go further. And I'm excited that we have an opportunity to work on a lot of these use cases.
Well, that's very interesting. A lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges. Now to the question of the day, AI. We've seen a lot of excitement about generative AI in many, many other areas across the business. I haven't seen a lot of discussion around R&D. What are your thoughts on applying generative AI to R&D?
Well, you're not hearing about this a lot for 2 reasons. First is you don't really want to talk about innovation you're doing in-house in public, right? If you have something good going, it's not something that you want to actually talk openly about. But trust me, people are using a lot of AI and ML for different R&D use cases. Another reason why you may not hear a lot about use cases GenAI is because some of the solutions that really move the needle in that space, they're actually quite more complex. It's not an easy topic to go talk about, for example, knowledge graphs and topologies and et cetera, et cetera. It's not an easy message to put it out there. But things you do hear about is the different productivity use cases, right? So let's use stable diffusion, generative AI to ideate on a new packaging design. Is it going to produce a new package for you? No, it won't. It can't yet. But it's going to give you an idea, right? An idea that you can use, right? So people adopt these tools. Lots of copilots work. Large language models enable R&D teams to work with a massive amount of complicated data that they developed, over years. So this is what people do start with.
Let's start with the most important thing in retail, and that's customers, right? Customers are very important to our retail clients, and so when we think about generative AI and how that might transform the customer space, how do you see that in your business transforming for retailers?
So when I think about generative AI, it's not completely new. It's been around for a while, right? So AI has been there a while, for more than 10 plus years. What we have dealt so far in AI is what we call predictive AI. Predictive AI, if you want to correspond, it corresponds to the left side of our brain, whereas generative AI corresponds to the right side of the brain. So the predictive AI does the prediction, it does the calculations, it does forecasting, it does all of that. Whereas generative AI kind of gives you that generation of content, that creativity, the images, text, audio, video, all of that, right? And when you think about what generative AI can do for our customers, while our clients are really focused on using generative AI in both online as well as at stores, I think what we'll focus, I'll keep my answers to the store. The first and foremost thing is how can they engage with their customers in a much more seamless manner. Understanding the customer, identifying the loyal customer, what could be their buying behavior, all of those things generative AI can do much better. So I'm really excited about what generative AI can do for our customers and clients because it not only brings that online experience to store, especially post-COVID, you have started this order online, pick up at store, so that integration has come much more seamless and integrated very deeper. And this is where generative AI does a very good job of bringing those things together.
The one thing that every retailer has in common is incidents, right? Whether it is a down lane or a product not on file or something like that, or even worse. How do you see AI sort of helping both in-store and potentially back office sort of resolve the IT incidents? Is there a way that AI can be used to sort of reduce the impact?
I think when we talk about incidents at the store, it could be the inventory one that you talked about. It could be things that are related to supply chain, last mile delivery, right? Those are some of the use cases that generative AI can tackle. Right? And then the other use cases that I would talk about is digital twin. So digital twin is, for example, when our clients, when they set up stores, they call black stores. They have to really see how to establish a store, where to place the items, how the assortments will look like. Now with generative AI and with the help of creating those images and videos, you are able to simulate a store setup without really spending millions of dollars in setting up a black store. So that's another use case. So there are several use cases that are aligned directly to making the lives of the employees better and also the customers, right? The goal of generative AI, I wouldn't say it's completely nascent, it's a mature technology. It has become much more popular, especially after the OpenAI LLM models back in 2017. So with the help of generative AI, what we are really seeing is how can you improve the top line and the bottom line benefits for our clients.
So the Wall Street Journal article that you referenced, it was a few weeks ago, and one of the things that they sort of put forward is the question really of where will the savings be seen, right? Will providers like DXC, will you be able to pass those savings on? So you're able to develop using things like GitHub Copilot and others to develop faster. What do you think? And that was the question they had is, will that savings get passed on to the corporate enterprise?
Absolutely. See, I see this as a win-win for the providers as well as for the clients. So when we use the generative AI or any of those associated tools, whether it is Copilot, whether it is other tools, we are able to leverage that and you are able to pass the savings. Your savings are going to be accelerated timeline. You are going to, instead of taking a 10-year project, you're looking at a 6-7-year project, right? That's savings right there. Nobody can hide that from anybody, right? The second is the effort it takes to rewrite the code, the effort to generate a documentation, the effort to generate what we call the test cases. All of that is going to be directly passed on to the customer, right? My suggestion would be, let's test on a smaller engagement so you will see what kind of benefits you get, and then you will apply that to a larger engagement. So I don't see this is a contention or an issue between the provider and the client. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward, pretty transparent. You will see that benefits directly hitting the bottom line for our clients.
Retailers face, complex supply chains, disruption, ever-changing consumer demands. How can these market forces be overcome?
Yeah, I think retailers need to think about these problems, things that they can control, right? What's in their control, because many things are not under their control. And one of the things is the topic of this session is inventory. It's their biggest controllable cost, or one of the biggest controllable costs that they have in the company.
For sure, totally. And what kinds of challenges do you see retailers facing when it comes to inventory and controlling it?
I think there's three things that we think about as it relates to inventory. There's sort of out of stock and overstock, which is kind of a similar problem with sort of a two-sided coin, if you will. There's shrink. It's another hot topic. We hear a lot of that in the news today. And the last thing I think that's relevant for this conversation is around physical inventory. Those three things are really where I think we should focus around inventory.
Yeah. So what kinds of solutions are you talking to clients about at EY in those categories?
From the overstock and out of stock position, first thing we do is we try to identify the root cause of the problem, right? And so when we do that, there's probably about 40 or so usual suspects as I think about it, right, on where these problems reside. And we roll those up into three big buckets, right? There are supplier-related issues. You know, are my suppliers sending me my products on time? Are they sending them in full? There are sort of demand forecasting, if you will, problems. Are we forecasting appropriately and accurately? And what are we doing with that forecast, and how are we flowing goods properly to meet the demand? And then the last piece of that equation is store execution, right? Are my stores executing appropriately? Are they putting the product out of the back room onto the shelf, something as basic as that? Are they keeping compliant with planograms? Right? All these things impact sort of out of stock or overstock or both, right? And so what we do, you know, as I mentioned, there's 40 typical scenarios where these things occur, where these problems reside. We leverage an AI tool set to really identify which are the most likely candidates, right, for the problem and how to solve them to get to the root causes.
Great. So you also talked about shrink and how that's impacting retailers' inventory positions. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so shrink is in the news these days. You know, it's all over the place. And so in the last 5 years or so, we've seen shrink double for retailers, right? Significant amounts at risk we're talking about. And similar to what I talked about with out of stock and overstock, we go and we try to solve this problem. We talk about it from a root cause standpoint and try to identify where is it happening. And so when we look at it, we think of three things with shrink. There's external shrink and external theft. There's internal shrink or theft. And then there's other operational control type issues is also contributing to shrink. So really, in order to get there, to get to those answers as well, we look at structured data, think about data coming in from the point of sale and sort of analyzing that from a fraud or shrink perspective, and also think about unstructured data that we gather from social media and other places, and put that all together into a data set and have to analyze that to come up with insights and answers, right? So this is where I think AI comes into play in a great way for us.
Yes, in a huge way. And I think one of the breakthroughs that we've seen with generative AI and large language models is that for the first time, really, retailers have the ability, companies have the ability of not only looking at structured data that they own and from third parties, but also unstructured data, video data, camera data, all kinds of things that were kind of blind to them before.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the final sort of topic, if you will, that we talk about here is physical inventories, or the actual physical taking of inventory and counting of inventory. Typically, retailers do this, the full sort of enterprise once a year. Well, we're working with retailers now who are not doing that anymore. They're not doing full inventories anymore. They're maybe doing 10% of the stores counting of inventory, and then they're extrapolating out what their shrink is based on that 10%. So we call that statistical sampling, and we leverage AI models to come up with which are the right stores to choose in order to do that statistical sampling. So that's another great use case around AI.
Yeah, that's very revolutionary, because it was in my days as a store retailer, it was always every year in January you took that physical inventory of the entire store, turned over every shelf in every stock room, and still, you know, they could never really tell if the shrink was from external theft, internal theft, or just bad handling, paperwork issues, all those kinds of things. So it's amazing that we can use AI tools to be able to discern that and to be able to alleviate some of that workload.
I wanted to just read out to kind of kick this off and see what you think about this. So this is something, I've got to read it from my phone. This is from something, it was in the New York Times, March 8th, this last year. So this is a professor based in the US. He's 95 years old, named Chomsky, on artificial intelligence, right? And he is credited, amongst other things, with being the founder of cognitive science. So presumably he knows a thing or two about this. So I found this really fascinating. So the human mind is not like ChatGPT and its ilk, a lumbering statistical engine for pattern matching, gorging on hundreds of terabytes of data and extrapolating the most likely conversational response or most probable answer to a scientific question. On the contrary, the human mind is a surprisingly efficient and even elegant system that operates with small amounts of information. It seeks not to infer brute correlations among data points, but to create explanations. And here's the thing. let's stop calling it artificial intelligence and call it for what it is, plagiarism software, because it doesn't create anything but copies existing works of existing artists, modifying them enough to escape copyright laws. Now, that's a bit of an opening. What are your thoughts on that?
It is. Well, I have two thoughts as you were saying that. One is, it was a year ago, almost exactly.
Yep.
And as we talk about this Promethean moment and the fact that it only took 2 months for ChatGPT to get to 100 million users, okay? Yeah. When you think even about that statement, which I understand, but he talks about it in brute, right? Artificial intelligence and the mechanisms around it and what people are doing with the data and feeding it more elegantly has really come leaps and bounds even in that short time. I'm not discounting what he says at all, because it is data, it is not the human mind. And then the second thought I had about that is, okay, we know the human mind is better. As we have learned that you need to massage what you get out of AI, et cetera, and make sure it's the right voice, et cetera. So we know that it's better, the human mind, but we can't discount the time savings.
Yeah. I just think that the industry is getting punch drunk on AI. And if that is the case, I think the hangover is going to be a pretty bad one. Yeah. I think it's great that we're all talking about it, because I think we will navigate a path through. And I just wonder whether retail as an industry is in danger unless it just maybe takes a step back.
Well, and takes a step back also means that what we need to apply to all the ways that we think about AI is the same, even though it's faster, better, bigger, the opportunities are endless. We need to apply the exact same thing that we apply to everything else, which is, does it fit my business? Right. Where does it fit my business? How does it fit my business? What is going to be the best for my customer and for my business? There was talking again about how this is being adopted and dealt with inside companies, this big scary thing. There was a stat that was given this morning that I really reacted to. For every dollar spent on AI, you get $3.50 back in increased revenue, and it has an ROI of 14 months, which is I call it a panic-inducing stat, because you're there saying, okay, where do I put the dollar? Where it's panic-inducing because you feel like you don't know what to do with that information, but it's so compelling that you have to do something. And so I don't like statistics like that don't deal with that, because, as someone pointed out, the way it got interpreted was, I can give up 3 headcount.
Yeah.
And then everybody panics, and then nobody wants to give their data away, and so these are just real life corporate retail things that you need to consider.